A lot of information this weekend, huh? Especially if you've not been exposed to any of this stuff before. I mean, between Randy and Doug and myself, it's like we've got a fire hose on you all last day and a half. Here, not like that. Well, I want to kind of wrap up my talk and direct our attention to the possibility of the return of the Nephilim now, in the last days. We agree that we are either in the last days or rapidly approaching. As Randy said, the New World Order is not coming, it's here. It's ramping up. And some interesting things are headed our way, I believe. Now, when I'm talking about the last days, as Yeshua did, in Matthew 24:37, it says, "As it was in the days of Noah, so shall I be at the coming of the Son of Man." And I want to just put a couple things out here for you to consider. The days of Jared were marked by the mating of angels with humans. However, it was the days of Noah that the creation of animal and human hybrids brought about the corruption of all flesh that we read about in Genesis 6:12, which ultimately led to God's judgment with the flood. So if I was to take Jesus' words literally in Matthew 24:37, all we need to do is turn on the evening news. Seriously. I mean, we're not seeing the repeat of angels mating with women, although there are people who give testimony to that. And I don't doubt that they have experiences. I really don't. My problem is, as a researcher, I look for evidence. And while I can believe somebody believes what they believe, unless they can show me proof, DNA, picture, or something, look, I'm a researcher, so I'm looking for evidence. I'm not doubting their testimony. I'm looking for evidence. I have not seen physical evidence of angels mating with women. I've heard testimony, haven't seen evidence. However, I have seen physical evidence of animal-human hybridization taking place on the evening news on a fairly regular basis. So I'm going with the tangible, what I can see, hear, touch, taste, smell, verify, vet out, and that's what I'm seeing. Now, let's talk about transhumanism. When I talk about transhumanism, I believe it is a doctrine of devils. And I'm going to bring you back to Genesis 3 again. The serpent said unto the woman, "You shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil." What you see here is essentially three promises of the serpent. A promise of immortality. You won't die. A promise that their eyes shall be opened and have greater wisdom and understanding and knowledge. Right? And you shall be like God. You know what's interesting about those three? They already had them. They were already mortal. Death didn't come until after they took a bite. Right? Greater wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. They walked with God in the cool of the day. Hey God, how did the Milky Way get there? Well, let me tell you, Adam. How much more wisdom, understanding, knowledge you need than walking with God, the creator of the universe. You will be like God. They were already made in the image and likeness of God. They already had all three. They believed the devil, took a bite, and lost it. And man's been trying to get it back ever since. There's an individual named Professor Nick Bostrom. I'm going to play a clip from a documentary called Building Gods. Look at these three promises of the serpent. Immortality, greater wisdom, understanding, knowledge, and be like God. Okay? Look at that. Look at the orders that they're listed. Listen to what Professor Nick Bostrom, he's one of the most vocal spokespersons for the transhumanist movement. That's what he said.
What I'm really interested in is to try to understand the bigger picture for humanity, our place in the world, and what might lie in store for our species in the future. Particularly the way we might use technologies to enhance ourselves, or to go beyond what we currently think of as our human nature, whether it might be by radically extending the human lifespan through solving the problem of aging, or increasing our intellectual capacities, improving our memory, or taking control of our own emotional states. I think that we are right now in a transitional phase where before the end of this century we will either have gone extinct, or we will have most likely taken the step to become what you might call transhumans or posthumans, or just very enhanced humans that have reached their full potential.
The same three promises of Lucifer in the same order. Man, you can't script this stuff. It's unbelievable, these You go to his website, you know, he's a professor at a major university, and this chart is taken from his website, and it shows the sensory modalities of various creatures. You see in the lower right corner, that the little pink circle, that's what's accessible to humans. What we can see, hear, taste, touch, smell, you know, that's what our senses are capable of experiencing. Animals have that longer oval there on the bottom. They, you know, we know that dogs can hear at different frequencies than humans. You know, eagles have better eyesight, and radar, a bat, sonar, a dolphin, things like that. So they have other abilities that we don't have. And so he says, well, if we could blend some of these characteristics of animals with what we have as humans, we might get this orange oval here that would be acceptable, you know, accessible to transhumans. And if we keep tinkering with the genome and messing around, maybe even incorporating technology, computers and stuff, we'll have this big yellow circle there, you know, square, whatever, that would be accessible to post-humans. We're going to become like the gods, basically. That's what they're talking about. These are some of the most intellectual people on the planet, and this is what they're thinking about and what they're talking about. And when it comes to blending ourselves with animals, check this video out.
Plans to allow scientists to create embryos that are part human and part animal are sent for approval by the official regulator in Britain. These hybrid embryos are seen by the country's leading scientists as a vital step in the search for cures for diseases such as Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. It's a highly controversial procedure and is banned in some European countries. Our medical correspondent Douglas Walsh has the story.
This embryo is part mouse, part cow. In a few months, this Newcastle lab is hoping to create a human-cow hybrid. This is highly complex science, the creation of cytoplasmic hybrids, known as cybrid embryos. The starting point is a cow's egg, which is cut open by a laser. The DNA is sucked out. The next step is to take a human cell, perhaps from a patient with Parkinson's disease, and inject it into the egg. Now this is the crucial point at which an embryo is created, because by using an electric shock, the hybrid embryo starts growing, the cells subdividing. In reality, it's smaller than a pinhead, and when it's just 6 days old, the embryo shell is broken open. Inside are stem cells, the body's master cells. The ultimate aim is to reprogram them into any tissue in the body. For example, nerve cells, heart cells, or brain cells. Scientists say this research is of profound importance and could lead to new treatments for a host of diseases like diabetes and Alzheimer's. But all this is years away. The science is just beginning.
Inside this barn is a herd of cows that evolution could never have produced.
What a sight! Every animal here is a clone. They're all genetic copies of just 2 original cows created in the lab. They were created by genetic engineering in the hope of saving human life. Hey!
Antibodies are produced by our bodies to fight disease. They can destroy lethal infections like SARS and poisons like botulism, but no one has found a way to mass produce them until now. Dr. Robles' calves are worth up to $500,000 each. They have human DNA inside them. Their future is to be milked for their blood. This is the world's first antibody extraction parlor. For 2 hours every week or so, these precious cows are connected to pumps that filter their blood and extract human antibodies.
The ultimate goal is to say, take anthrax, expose the cow to anthrax, and inject it with anthrax, at which point it starts making lots of antibodies against anthrax. And then you can collect those antibodies, purify them, and treat people who have been exposed to anthrax.
But it's no easy job to get cows to produce human antibodies. You have to genetically modify the cow's immune system to make it at least partly human. Dr. Roble has had to copy 2 sets of genes out of our DNA, which he then combines into a package called a microchromosome. But to get that microchromosome into the cow, he's had to use one of the most complex cut and paste jobs I've ever heard of.
Take the microchromosome and you transfer it from mouse cells to chicken cells. Okay? And this is a specific chicken cell line that allows you to cut and paste chromosomes. And the best way to carry this chromosome is actually in a hamster cell line. So then it goes to a hamster cell line. We then transfer it to the cow cell line.
So let me just get this straight. To make a human chromosome, you have to go through mice, chickens, hamsters, and then cows.
And then finally cows, yes.
Wow.
Because each cell type has its own peculiar but specific quality that allows us to do a specific kind of manipulation.
These cows take blood donation to a whole new level. Just 10 or 20 of them can supply the yearly worldwide demand for one of Dr. Robles' antibody therapies. And it's the kind of advance that only genetic engineering could have given us.
But in order to really take advantage of the technology, we're going to have to embrace it.
In order to really take advantage of technology, we're going to have to embrace it. Moron. You want a cow-human hybrid for him? It's called a minotaur. Cow-human hybrid. Do you hear what she said? To get a human chromosome, you have to go through mice, hamsters, and chickens, and cows. Why don't you just start with a human chromosome? Mice, hamsters, chickens, and cows. What did Genesis 6:12 say? All flesh become corrupted. How was it corrupted? Through this stuff. If I'm going to take Matthew 24:37 absolutely literally, that's it. That's what's happening. That's what happened in the pre-flood world the last 120 years leading up to the flood, and that's what's happening in our day today. That will tell you where we are on the prophetic scale of time. Now, do I think we're 100% in the days of Noah right now? No. I think we're taking early steps. And that's why this DVD, this presentation I'm talking about, is 2045 and the quest for immortality. I'm going to show you some things before the end of this video talking about the year 2045 and what the scientists of the world have in store for us and what they're planning to do right now. We saw how all flesh became corrupted, and Joshua 4:18, Jubilee 7:24 are an elaboration on Genesis 6:12. It's what we just saw in that video. All right? What has been will be done again. And again, I'm going to point back to these two books that inspired my thinking. Doug Ham's book, Corrupting the Image, and Mount Tom and Anita Horn's Forbidden Gates. I believe when you corrupt the image, that which God created of its own kind, by mixing it with kinds that were never meant to exist together, you're opening up forbidden gates that, in my opinion, are bringing back the return of the Nephilim, or at least one variety of them. Now again, it's all about not mixing seed. We see in Leviticus 19:19. You are to keep my statutes. You shall not bring together two kinds of your cattle. You shall not sow your field with two kinds of seed, nor even wear a garment upon you of two kinds of material mixed together. That's how much God is against the mixing of seed. Mixture, right? And I found it interesting that that's a quote from Leviticus 19:19, because when you look at Revelation 19:19, and I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on a horse and against his army. What's their army comprised of? Well, we saw that in Revelation 17. We talked about it last night. And the day that go on the earth shall wonder whose names were not written in the book of life. I believe our names are all written there, and all we have to do is confirm our reservation. You reject Christ, you get blotted out. You can't blot something out unless it was there to begin with. That's why I believe God said he's not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. The proof is he put your name in the book before the foundation of the world. Amen. So who are these guys? Whose names were never written in the book of life. I believe they're Dr. Roble type, creature from the island of Dr. Moreau, concoctions. People that were never meant to exist in the first place, in my opinion. Now, GMOs, we heard some talk about that earlier. You find that even the food was corrupted, and you see in Leviticus 19, beginning of verse 23, when you enter the land and plant all kinds of trees for food, then you shall count their fruit as forbidden. 3 years it shall be forbidden to you. It shall not be eaten. But in the 4th year, all its fruit shall be holy, an offering of praise to the Lord. In the 5th year, you are to eat of its fruit, that its yield may increase for you. I am the Lord your God. You shall not eat anything with the blood, nor practice divination or soothsaying. I talked about in the previous session that the sins of the fathers were passed down to how many generations? 3rd and 4th. Right? That applied even to the food. The genetic tampering, even with the food, had to go through a process of cleansing right through the 4th year. You couldn't eat it until the 5th year. Genetic tampering of food took place in the land of Canaan. Genetic tampering of food is taking place today. What I found interesting looking at the Enoch account is that when it talked about the angels coming down and mating with women, it says, and all the others together with them took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one, and they began to go in unto them, and to defile themselves with them, and they taught them charms and enchantments, and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. And then they became pregnant, and they bare great giants whose height was 3,000 ells. 3,000 ells, some, Dr. A. Nyland translated 3,000 ells as 300 cubits. That seems ridiculous to us to think of 300 cubit tall people, which is the same dimension as the length of the ark. The ark was 300 cubits, 450 feet. Now, to think of a 450-foot tall giant seems completely absurd to us, but the Greeks didn't think so. They called them the Titans. In fact, if you go see any of the recent movies that come out, Percy Jackson, the last one, they released Kronos, 400-footer. Clash of the Titans, Part 2. Watch the movie Clash of the Titans, Part 2. Kronos is released, Titan, 400-footer. Again, Hollywood gets it. Okay, so, whether it's hard to believe or not, that's what the Age of Record testifies. These guys were massively huge. But before they could have children, they had to mess around with the plants first. I mean, think about it. Why is it that, for 6,000 years, we've had no problem eating a tomato the way God made it? But now, all of a sudden, we got to pump it full of stuff. Why? Our food was perfect. It was fine. It was good. It was nutritional. It bared fruit after its own kind. It wasn't a Terminator seed. Grow once, no, you can't replant it. As it was in the days of Noah. Why are they corrupting our food? Well, they did it before. And incidentally, they did it before the angels were able to copulate with women. Maybe there's a reason why they're doing the genetic modification of food today. Just saying. Oh, and by the way, even your bottled water, you look on the bottom of most bottled water, you see the PET logo, the type of plastic it is. PET logo number 1. If you have this in your car and it heats up above 80, 85 degrees, don't drink it. Because the plastic leaches it leaches a lot of stuff into the water. But one of the components that leaks into your water is antimony. Well, what's interesting is if you read the book of Enoch, chapter 8, it says, and Azazel, who is the one we talked about last night, the Mount Hermon-Roswell connection, who all sin was ascribed to Azazel, taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates, and made known unto them the metals of the earth and the art of working with them. He taught them the art of war, taught them how to make bracelets and other things too, and all kinds of costly stones, and all coloring tinctures, if we might consider that food coloring. And it also says that he made them acquainted with antimony. The use of antimony was one of the things directly ascribed to Azazel, that he taught people to use antimony. And now all of a sudden, everybody, the drinks, who knows what this sat on a warehouse or a cart, before it made it to your supermarket refrigerator. Antimony. Why? I don't know. Maybe there's a plan at work here with these blue bloods and whatnot, the global elite. We see in Leviticus 17:11, for the life of the flesh is in the blood. When I looked that up in Hebrew, I saw that the word translated in English as life is nefesh. We talked about nefesh earlier, didn't we? Soul. It's saying the soul of a being is in the blood. The soul is in the blood. Well, some of you may have been following some of my work and know that I've got some physical issues going on, neurological stuff. It's actually improving. I've been going to a Messianic Jewish chiropractor who works miracles. This man knows the Lord big time. He's doing some really good work. But for a while there, I'm fine like this, everything's good, but if I put any pressure, my muscles shake. Like all the time, And this is a major improvement. It used to be like this, without hardly pressing at all. So I started going and doing different things. I do not believe going to doctors is a good thing to do, in my opinion, so I always look for alternatives. And I went to another Christian friend of ours who does microscopy, where they take a sample of your blood and look it under a dark field microscope. You're able to see everything. And he treats with holistic herbs and things of that nature. Well, when I had my blood drawn, he took a sample of blood from my pinky and put it on a slide, put it over here. And then he said, don't press your finger or anything, just let the blood ooze out naturally for a couple seconds here. So we waited. And they took another glass slide and he smudged it once, smudged it twice, smudged it 3 times and put it aside. I said, what'd you do that for? He said, well, each one of these blood smudges represents a third of your life. The first smudge represents your current state, and the middle one is the second third of your life, and the last one is your first third of your life. I'm like, okay, whatever. So then we looked at the live sample, the drop of blood, and I'll show you that in a minute. But after we did all that, looked at the live sample, we went back, the other blood had dried. There was some smudges and it dried. And we're looking at the smudge that represented the first third of my life under this microscope. And he comes to that right there. And I hadn't said a word to this guy. He turns to me and he says, you ever break or dislocate your collarbone? I said, yeah, dude, I was like 9 years old. He said, well, that's it right there. I said, what are you talking about? He says, you know, Scripture says life is in the blood, right? I'm like, yeah. He said, it's like a carbon copy. It records everything. And he said, that's the imprint of it. And he pointed to a plastic skeleton in the corner. He said, look at the plastic oil. Look at that. And, you know, it's the same. He said, that's the imprint in the first third of your life of your injury. I hadn't told the guy anything, and he's reading my mail. And he kept looking again. I hadn't said anything. He turns to me and said, you had respiratory problems, too, in the first third of your life, didn't you? I said, yeah, I had asthma until age 12. He said, well, that's it right there. He pointed to it. I'm like, whoa! And we looked at the middle third. It was the healthiest time of my life, and it showed that. And then we looked at the last third of my life, and it showed some of the pathology that I'm dealing with now. So he made me a believer. I'm like, well, what do I do with that? This guy's reading my mail. He's looking at my blood. But he's proven to me from a scientific point of view what the Scriptures are telling us. Thousands of years ago, the life is in the blood. That's not all that was in my blood. Here's some screenshots. Your blood is supposed to be, you know, you see some fairly normal cells up there that, you know, it's supposed to be nice and round, some translucent. They're supposed to be flowing nice and free. Well, mine are all in big traffic jams and slammed together and full of stuff. That's fungus in the top left. That's a parasite in the right. That's a cell-eating amoeba there on the middle left. In all the dark spots in the middle, there are cells that it had previously eaten. And we sat and watched it literally suck live cells in as it was eating my cells. That's cholesterol there on the right. And then down here, you see this gear-looking cell right there. It's got little bumps all over it. This whole section right here, all of it. Cancer. 25% cancer cells. Out of my pinky. That came out of my pinky. And I'm going, that came out of my pinky. What's going on in the rest of my body? You know, different things in there. I'm looking at it like, freak, why am I still alive? You know, and we went through some natural homeopathic stuff, herbs and different things, and then some rife treatment. If you know what rife is, we use the frequencies and stuff to get rid of it. And cleaned out just about everything, except for some bacteria. There was still bacteria, but it got rid of the fungus, it got rid of the cell-eating amoebas, and I had no cancer. They got me on an alkaline diet, alkaline water and stuff like that, because cancer cannot live in an alkaline environment. So they don't tell you any of this stuff, you know, in the medical community. If I went to the doctor with some of the stuff that I had, who knows what they would have pumped through me. I went to this guy, he's after me with some little lightsaber things, and, you know, for 7 treatments, and take some drops under my tongue, and 7 weeks later, you know, 14 treatments later, no cancer, and all the parasites are gone, and everything. Okay? But life in your blood is not just your life. There's other stuff in your blood if you don't know how to take care of yourself. Now me, where did I get this? I don't know. I mean, I was a missionary. I traveled to third world countries, and I was in the jungles of India and Africa and all over the place. So who knows where I could have got some of this stuff. But you know what? You probably have it too. If you walk around barefoot. That's all it takes to pick up parasites. You know, if you've got animals, you pretty much definitely have them. People in third world countries know about this stuff, so they drink certain kind of teas, they eat herbs and stuff like that because they know they have it, so they purge it out. Americans have no clue. Most people walk around, and the symptoms that you get from parasites mimic lupus, MS. A lot of things that people are being diagnosed with can be simply treated by going to your local vitamin store and taking paraben. You know, get rid of parasites. Now, when it comes to parasites, check this video out, parasite mind control.
Ants are a part of the most disciplined, dedicated social system on Earth. Until, that is, they become slaves to behavior-controlling parasites. Suddenly, these rogue ants no longer serve the colony. They're taking their orders from the parasite. Okay, let's back up. Now, how did this happen? It all begins when the ants in any town, USA, consume the slime of a passing snail. They divide it up and take it back to the colony. This is a blunder of epic proportions. Turns out, the slime is loaded with eggs of a body snatcher called the liver fluke, the type of flatworm. The liver fluke burrows into a part of the ant's brain, and for unknown reasons, it's almost like the fluke enslaves the ants and orders them to carry it to their next hosts. Any grazing mammal host with a nice warm liver will do, but in this case, a cow appears. The liver fluke worms can switch the ant's behavior on and off, causing the infected ants to place themselves in easy-to-eat positions at dusk when mammals are feeding. No cows in sight, ants act normal. Cows appear, ants are in essence ordered to take their positions in purple flowers and latch on. The cows ingest the vegetation, the ants, and the fluke larvae inside the ants all in one bite. Once inside the cow, the worms burrow out of the stomach and into the liver, where they develop into adults and dine on liver tissue. They lay eggs that are excreted from the liver into the bile duct, and then defecated by the cows. They don't kill the cows, but the cows become weak and emaciated, devastating herds. And all because of parasitic mind control.
Okay, now let that sink in. Right? Microscopic parasite comes out of a snail, ant eats it, it controls the ant's brain because it's a liver fluke, so it wants to get inside a mammal's liver, so it controls the ant. When the appropriate time, he's doing his thing, and all of a sudden, cow walk by, run up, get eaten. Goes into the liver, does his thing, and then reproduces, and the cow defecates, and then the cycle starts all over again. By the way, there are parasites that will control human beings' brains as well. I didn't have time to put it on there, but there's a whole another series of videos that I actually ended up watching on how humans can be controlled by microscopic parasites. Okay? That can get into your blood and get into your brain. That made me really start to rethink this whole mark of the beast thing. Okay? When you look at the mark of the beast, we say it also causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark. That is, the name of the beast or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. In other words, pay attention. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. And I talk about it quite a bit in my first book, and in Babylon Rising DVDs and stuff, how I believe it's Nimrod. And Nimrod and his various associations, there's 666 all over the guy, everywhere. But, so I believe that that's where it traces back to Nimrod. But we see that in Revelation 9, 5, and 6, it says, they, the locusts, that came up out of the bottomless pit, were allowed to torment them for 5 months, but not to kill them. And the torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it stings someone. And in those days, people will seek death and will not find it. They will long to die, but death will flee from them. Everybody talks about the mark of the beast, and they say, well, I can't buy and sell. Well, yeah, that's true, that's part of it. But what about this part? They beg for death, but death flees from them. You know, anybody see World War Z? Or, yeah, I mean, some of these movies coming out of the zombie apocalypse, you gotta wonder why the CDC is actually having drills about the zombie apocalypse. Government tax dollars are going, our tax dollars are being used by the government to do drills for a zombie apocalypse. Why? What's going on with that? Well, there's a number of things we need to check out here. In Revelation 19:20, and the beast was captured, and with it a false prophet who in its presence had done the signs by which he deceived those who had received the mark of the beast and those who worshipped its image. These two were thrown alive into the lake of fire that burns with sulfur. Now, I remember back in the 90s, a lot of people were talking about the barcode. I was one of them. You know, it's the barcode! If you look at the two skinny lines in the code of the barcode, the two skinny lines are represented by the number 6. If you look at a barcode, you see two skinny lines, a bunch of numbers, two skinny lines, a bunch of numbers, two skinny lines. So you got 666 in the barcode, you know? And I was like, it's the mark of the beast, it's the barcode! talking about the microchip. I'm going to suggest there might be one more thing to consider regarding the mark of the beast. Now, a lot of people talk about the microchip and that it may have the ability to rewrite your DNA, and that may be possible, especially people who claim to have alien abduction implants. Elliot Marzulli has done some work with Dr. Lear in extracting so-called implants that people say they have, and his theory that it's changing people's DNA. So it could be that maybe all of this is involved. I don't know. But I've become a lot more intrigued by the idea that the mark of the beast may really have more to do with the blood of the Antichrist. If he truly is an Antichrist, how do we have salvation and thus eternal life? Through what? The shed blood of the Lamb, right? The blood of Christ is what saves us and gives us eternal life. So if the Antichrist is truly an antithesis, it makes sense to me that the mark of the beast is probably something to do with his blood. And in the book, Pandemonium's Engine, Tom Horn is the publisher of this book, but it has a number of authors have contributed, so like every chapter is written by another author. But in the beginning of it, he puts forth a theory. He says, okay, imagine they create a global pandemic. It's Hegelian dialectic. Cause a problem that everybody has a reaction to that they just so happen to have the solution for. So let's say they cause a global pandemic. And, if you saw World War Z, that's what the movie's about. And they're like, well, and the only way to survive the zombie apocalypse there was to inject yourself with vaccines from other bad stuff, because the zombies knew that you were tainted blood, they didn't come after you. It's just like, really? That's the solution in this movie? But Tom says, okay, imagine this. You have a global pandemic that they caused, and the only solution is this vaccine that they just so happen to put together for you. And by the way, it's a miracle vaccine. You're never going to get sick again. You might even live 500 years. Wow, who's not going to want that? You got to wonder who's going to want the mark of the beast, especially since we know so much about it. I mean, if it's a barcode, take it off. If it's a microchip, cut it out. If it's a tattoo, scrape it off. If it changes your DNA, what are you going to do? You can't do anything about it. It's changing you genetically such that you are no longer redeemable after that. It's a one-way trip. But I believe it's going to be very enticing. They're going to cause a problem, it's going to cause a reaction that they'll have the solution for, and you're going to have to make a decision. Are you going to trust God, especially if there's no preacher of rapture? Okay, Randy didn't want to talk about it, I don't want to talk about it either. I'm just going to say, what if? Okay, I was a Boy Scout. I'd rather be prepared. I'd rather be prepared and not need to be prepared than not be prepared when I do need to be prepared. See what I'm saying? If we're getting out of here, great. I will be happy to be wrong. I'll be high-fiving every preacher around the way like, woo-hoo, let's go. But if it ain't pre-trib, there might be some decisions we have to make. And we may have to think about some things and figure out how much do you trust God when you're looking at your kid who has this pandemic disease. Do I go get the CVS flu shot? Here's a microcosm right now. The flu right now, there are people who can't keep their job unless they get the flu shot. Right? It's a microcosm. It's a test. Right? And the flu shot's bad, guys. Do some research on that. You don't want that in you. So imagine this. Tom's saying, okay, let's say you decide you don't want to take the super shot for the global pandemic. Fine, they're going to quarantine you. You're not going to have a job, you're going to be quarantined, you're going to not have food, and you won't be able to buy and sell. That explains why, you might have a problem if you don't take the mark of the beast. But if you do take the mark of the beast, well, it's like those commercials, where they have the side effects, they always advertise in the commercial. If you don't take this, if you do take the shot, side effects may include counterfeit immortality. Not redeemable. Cast alive into the lake of fire. Ask your political leader if this shot is right for you. See the commercial? See how this helps explain both the buying and selling and cast alive into the lake of fire, begging for death, and death leads from him? I don't know. I'm speculating here. I'm just a researcher, okay? I don't have all the answers. I have more questions than I have answers. But this is some of the things that I'm wondering about. And I believe we're going to have to figure out how to avoid the corruption of our flesh. And we've got a roadmap for us right here. Amen. That's the roadmap. that's going to help us not have our flesh corrupted and possibly end up with the mark of the beast. John 14:12 is my trump card for all you cessationists out there. I'm saying that because I grew up in a Baptist background that taught cessation. Anybody know what the doctrine of cessation is?
No.
The doctrine of cessation is that the gifts of the Spirit passed away with the Apostle John.
Right.
The last one to die. I'm like, where do you read that in the Bible? Nowhere. That's not in there. I started to question that when I started reading it for myself and not listening to what the guy was saying. You know, John 14:12 is my trump card. You think cessation? Great, what do you do with this? I tell you the truth. Anyone, not just Peter, James, and John, anyone who believes in me will do the same works I have done, and even greater works, because I'm going to be with the Father.
Yeah.
Now, we can debate the greater works all day long. I don't know what they are. But let's go back to the previous statement. We'll do the same works. Let's get that one right. Then we can worry about the greater works. Well, I knew we're supposed to walk on water and turn water into wine. Look, I didn't write it. That's what it says. Here's a Sharpie. Here's a highlighter. Pick one.
Right.
I highlighted it. Mark 16 and 17. These miraculous signs will accompany those who believe. So I guess we got to believe.
Come on.
They will cast out demons in my name, and they will speak in new languages. They will be able to handle snakes with safety, and if they drink anything poisonous, it won't hurt them. They will be able to place their hands on the sick, and they will be healed. Does it say maybe, could be, possibly, hope so? Those who believe will. Do we believe it or not?
Yes.
Look, I don't have it 100% myself. I've laid hands on people and seen people get healed. I've laid hands on people and seen them not get healed.
Yeah.
But I don't blame God, I blame myself. Because I know what's going on in here. I know if you give me a half a second to think about it, I'll move from faith to doubt just like that. Yeah. And I found, at least in my life, that doubt is the kryptonite of faith. It cancels it out. Okay? But when I just acted, when God said do it, and I do it, man, I've seen it happen. Cast out demons, the whole thing. You know, I've seen it work. I know it works. John 5 says, is anyone sick among you? Where should you go? CVS? Walgreens, your local hospital? Where are you supposed to go? It was called for the elders of the church, and they are to pray over him, anointing him with oil in the name of the Lord. And the prayer offered in faith, not doubt, will restore the one who is sick. There's a roadmap right there for us. Because they are poisoning us. Chemtrails, yeah, they are chemtrails. I was in aviation for 6 years. It's not contrails, okay? Contrails are the little cloud that follows the plane. Chemtrails go across the whole sky, stay there all day, look like a checkerboard. That's chemicals being poured over, sprayed over you every day. Okay? Genetically modified food. They are trying to kill you. Randy showed you. It's true. The Georgia Guidestones put it in stone for us. They want to limit the human race to 500 million, which means 6.5 billion of us got to die. They're trying to do that. But greater is he that's in me than he that's trying to kill me. Amen. Amen. But I've got to believe that. I've got to trust in that. I've got to put all my faith in that. Amen. Right? Look, if nobody was in this room, I'd be talking to myself. Okay? I'm not saying anything to you that I don't have to preach to myself. All right? But I think we got to get it, because the future, I don't care which direction you look at, we don't have much time left. My personal opinion is we have about 20 years. That's what I think, based on my research. But in that 20 years, we're going to see some stuff, assuming we have that long. Corrupting flesh also nowadays includes computer integration. The Borg of Star Trek. Time magazine showing up about human cloning. It's closer than you think. This other one here shows a dude with a plug in the back of his head. It says 2045, the year man becomes immortal. This is immortality apart from God. All right, when it comes to this variety of transhumanism, check this video out.
To transfer your mind to a computer, this seems to be the ultimate dream of many scientists. To liberate us from our old body that is becoming obsolete in this technological world.
So in a way, mind-uploading is a shortcut around artificial intelligence that will allow us to have machines with human minds.
We will be able to inject a certain number of nanobots into our bodies, where they will locate our brain cells and copy their function. With no effort, we will get a hardware copy of our consciousness that will then send a software copy to a computer, where more copies can be made, or where our consciousness will be allowed to merge with other souls and software programs.
We are going to get to the Terminator scenario. That's what I say. Intelligent machines calling the shots. Humans, some subservient slaves is the best. Maybe on farms if we're lucky and so on. Looking at how we are ourselves now, I don't think the future is good. If you are a human after the singularity, forget it.
There are certainly some humans that are against having implants, that are against becoming a cyborg and having extra abilities. It's difficult to see much of a positive future existence for them. That clearly the world is going to be dominated either by intelligent machines or cyborgs, or a combination. That's where the future's going. And as a cyborg, if a human came to see me and it starts making silly noises, a bit like a cow does now. If a cow comes to me and says, moo, 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 I'm not going to say, yeah, that's a great idea, I'm going to do what you tell me. So it will be with a human. Then they'll come in and start making these silly noises that we call speech and human language and so on. And these trivial noises, I'm not going to do those silly things. Why should I? This creature's absolutely stupid in comparison to me.
And as the technology becomes vastly superior to what we are, then the small proportion that's still human gets smaller and smaller and smaller until it's just utterly negligible.
There's more computing capacity in a little grain of sugar when it's nanotech, 1 bit per atom, and flipping back and forth in femtoseconds. There's more computing capacity in that grain of sand than our human brain by a factor of billions or so. So that these machines, if we, humanity, if we decide to build them, we're building gods. Consider the analogy of the way we, as human beings, we look towards ants or mosquitoes as pests. We kill them and we don't give a damn because we feel we're so superior to them. They are so inferior to us. So who's to say that an intellect, which then becomes trillions of times above human capacities, may look upon us in the same kind of way? We can never be sure. As a brain builder myself, am I prepared to risk the extinction of the human species for the sake of building an intellect? Because that's what it comes down to. Yep.
We are fast approaching an event unprecedented in our history, a tipping point known as a technological singularity. When this happens, the world will change forever. I think we should embrace the singularity. You see, fundamentally, I'm an optimist. Optimists make history, not pessimists. So I'm going to come up with a solution that some people may find very surprising. Then, I want to address one urgent question as computer power races ahead. What happens when the machines become smarter than us? You saw what happened in the Terminator. You saw what happened in Blade Runner. What are we going to do about it? Well, I'm going to give you a radical new solution, and that is merge with them. First, this is the human brain, the most complex object in our sector of the galaxy. 100 million neurons that can be scanned by MRI, neuron for neuron. This means we can digitize all the information we accumulate during our lives and upload it into a giant mother computer. A vast database of all human knowledge. A resource we can share by downloading programs we want to give us instant knowledge. So when the singularity arrives, we will be in control. By merging with machines, we will enter a new age of superhuman existence. Then in the post-human era, we become Homo superior. We become a new species. We're talking about humanity becoming like the gods. What do you think? And how many want to sign up?
How many want to sign up? Okay, let's get real, Christian. know it's going to be good. Just imagine, you could download this, all of it, and have complete and total recall of every single verse in the Bible, with every commentary and every Strong's Concordance, everybody have it with instantaneous knowledge. Just plug in. That's just one example. Look, as a researcher, there's never enough time to read books. I love reading books. I have multiple books in various stages of incompletion around me all the time, because footnotes are my friend and my enemy. I love it when an author footnotes their research, because that enables me to go research what they searched. So I'm reading something, I find a footnote, I'm like, cool, you know, I go get that book, and I go read that book, and that guy's a footnote, cool, I don't read that. Yeah, it's just the way I am. But you know, the sales pitch is going to be pretty impressive. You know, be aware, that's what they're planning. Go to 2045.com, 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 2045 Strategic Social Initiative. This is what they've got planned for you. Well, actually, let me just let them tell you what they have planned for you.
2013 to 2014, new centres working on cybernetic technologies for the development of radical life extension rise. The race for immortality starts. 2015 to 2020, the Avatar is created, a robotic human copy controlled by thought via brain-computer interface. It becomes as popular as a car. In Russia and in the world appear, in testing mode, several breakthrough projects. Android robots to replace people in manufacturing tasks. Android robot servants for every home. Thought-controlled avatars to provide telepresence in any place of the world and abolish the need for business trips. Flying cars. Thought-driven mobile communications built into the body or sprayed onto the skin. 2020 to 2025. An autonomous system providing life support for the brain and allowing it interaction with the environment is created. The brain is transplanted into an Avatar B. With Avatar B, man receives new, expanded life. 2025. The new generation of avatars provides complete transmission of sensations from all 5 sensory robot organs to the operator. 2030 to 2035. Rebrain. The colossal project of brain reverse engineering is implemented. World science comes very close to understanding the principles of consciousness. 2035. The first successful attempt to transfer one's personality to an alternative carrier. The epoch of cybernetic immortality begins. 2040 to 2050. Bodies made of nanorobots that can take any shape arise alongside hologram bodies. 2045 to 2050. Drastic changes in social structure and in scientific and technological development. All the prerequisites for space expansion are established. For the man of the future, war and violence are unacceptable. The main priority of his development is spiritual self-improvement. A new era dawns. The era of neo-humanity.
After all that, I finally decided to get spiritual. Okay, these are the greatest scientists and minds in the world get together for these meetings. And this is their video on their website, what they're planning to do. And some of it's like within the next 2 years. You know, this is talking like 2045, so 30 years out. I don't think we have that long, personally. I do think we have about 20 years, but you saw what they've got planned. And if they achieve any of those goals, truth is stranger than fiction. What's coming? This is what they have planned. And normal humans are going to be the speck that the super people are going to view us. You know, we're useless. Useless eaters. Okay? That's what they have planned. That's what they're working toward. That's their goal. Does the Bible prophesy about the return of the Nephilim? I believe it does. There's some interesting scriptures. Isaiah 13, 21 and 22 in the King James. But wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be, okay, prophecy, full of doleful creatures. And this is the context of Babylon. And owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there. And the beasts of the island shall cry in their desolate houses, and dragons in their pleasant palaces. And her time is near to come, and her days shall not be prolonged. Well, the Septuagint goes a little deeper. Same verse in the Septuagint. But wild beasts shall rest there, and the houses shall be filled with howling, and monsters shall rest there, and devils shall dance there, and satyrs shall dwell there, and hedgehogs shall make their nests in their houses. It shall come soon and will not tarry. Same verse, Isaiah chapter 13. We see in Joel 2, compare the Joel 2 army with the description of the locusts in Revelation 9. Now, I don't want to offend anybody, but you need to study your scriptures before you go around thinking that you're part of the Joel 2 army. Right. There are people who teach and believe that they're part of the Joel 2 army. I'm like, did you guys actually read this? The Joel 2 army are the locusts that come up out of the bottomless pit. You don't want to be that. Okay? The Joel 2 army, you don't want to be that. Matthew 24:37, compare that. Okay? Compare Matthew 24:37 with the days of Noah and watch the evening news for some really good comparison. Now, let me go back up here. Also, there's another apocryphal text. Some people may have the apocrypha in their Bible. One of the apocryphal texts of 4th Esdras 5, 8, and 9 says, pregnant women will give birth to monsters. 4th Esdras 5, 8, and 9. Now, putting the arguments of canon aside, okay, it's not in the canon. Great, okay, fine. Here's an ancient text, though, that's reading our mail today. It's happening. That's what's happening. As soon as you realize that animal-human hybrids, in my opinion, are just as Nephilim as angel-human hybrids, you realize it all becomes quite clear. Nephilim are returning. And we may end up with the angel-human ones as well in the future. Now, regarding the locusts of Revelation chapter 9, go ahead and look it up. Revelation 9, the locusts are described as a horseman, centaur. Okay? They have a horse body, they run like horses, right? They have they have a human head with teeth like a lion, hair like a woman. You know, they have wings, scorpion tail. Okay, human face, lion teeth, wings, scorpion tails. And made me think about Revelation 9:16 a little different, because it says, and the number of the horsemen were 200 million, and I heard the number of them. Now, a few decades back, Time magazine published an article or a story saying that China is capable of fielding a 200 million man army. So all the eschatology teachers doing the best they can, you know, I'll give them credit, the best they can with the information that they had, said the 200 million horseman army must be the Chinese. You know, Gog and Magog, you know, it's all north of Israel, you know, maybe it's Russians, you know, Chinese alliance, whatever. No, Revelation 9 tells you what the horsemen are. Horseman. Horseman. Go on any equestrian website, pick one that tracks the population of horses on the planet. I tried to vet this out myself, and everything that I found regarding equestrian websites that track horse populations say there's only 67 to 70 million horses on the entire planet. Okay, so how do you get 200 million screaming Chinamen on 70 million horses? And what army fights with horses anyway? Today. A bunch of guys on horses can only take an Apache, it's all done. This is a little different. Horseman. They're chimeric centaurs coming up out of the bottomless pit, 200 million of them. And when you look into the research on this, the Greek mythology, you realize that centaurs came from an individual named Centaurus, who was a son of Apollo. What did Randy talk about earlier? Who's Apollo? The Antichrist, the beast. It's telling you what's coming. 200 million chimeric horsemen. Interesting. Okay. I do believe there is a biblical second incursion of angels made with humans. It hasn't happened yet, in my opinion. There's no indication that it happened in biblical times. However, in the book of Revelation, we have an interesting story in Revelation 12, 7 through 9. And there was a war in heaven, and Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil, and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Well, I believe the story is picked up in Isaiah 14. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which did weaken nations? Skip on down to Isaiah 14:21. God says, prepare slaughter for his children. The the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise, nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. I don't believe they're going to do what they did in biblical times and build megalithic structures. I think God's going to wipe them out before they get to that point. Prepare slaughter for his children. He's cast out of heaven, apparently comes down and starts having children. You ever wonder why the devil is bound for 1,000 years and then he gets let out? I mean, his destination is a lake of fire, right? So what's the deal with him getting bound in chains, put in prison for 1,000 years and being let out? Why? Because that is the prescribed judgment for angels who mate with women. All the ancient texts tell you that. That when angels mate with women, they're bound in chains and put in Tartarus, which is the prison. Peter talks about it. He talks about the angels left the first estate and all that. And they're everlasting chains. Your Bible probably says in prison or hell or Hades. The Greek word is Tartarus. It's the same place the Greeks understood where the Titans are. Angel mates with women, the prescribed judgment. It's like when you're speeding and the speed limit's 50 and you're doing 70, the town says, well, you got to pay $50 or whatever. That's the prescribed fine for that particular violation of the law, right? You violate God's law of angels don't mate with women, you get bound in chains and you're put in prison. Why does the devil go to prison for 1,000 years? Because he comes down after he gets kicked out of heaven by Michael and he has children. God would not be just if he didn't impose the same exact judgment on this angel that he did on all the other angels. It's a legal system. The devil violates that particular law, he gets that particular judgment. That's why he goes to prison for 1,000 years, and then he's let out again. And then there's the final deal and he gets put in the lake of fire. That is the only, in my opinion, the only biblically supported second degree. I talked about this last night, I'm going to finish with this tonight. Again, in the scripture, the days of Noah, right? The last days are going to be like that. And we're trying to create a TV series. I don't know how much more time we have. I talk about all this stuff, I research this stuff, I write about this stuff. I think, 20 years maybe max we have left. I'm like, really, God? A science fiction show? All I know is what I've been called to do. Randy said before, occupy to the accounts. This is what I've been programmed since I was 7 years old. I sat in the movie theater, saw Star Wars 13 times when I was 7 years old. And I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker. That's all I've ever done. I mean, other than a little hiatus in the military. I'm wired to be a filmmaker. And God has put this TV series called Seed, because it's all about the seed. It's the Seed Wars. That's what it is. And I'm trying to put it into a TV series because, why? Nothing reaches the masses, in my opinion, more than media, the arts, and entertainment. Nothing. The top 3 most influential factors, actually the top 10 most influential factors in our culture, the top 3 were movies, internet, and television. Alex Kendrick, the filmmaker who does Fireproof and Facing the Giants and Sherwood Baptist Church, those guys, he saw that Barna report that said of the top 10 most influential factors that influence our culture, our media, is movies, television, and the internet. He said the church didn't even rank in the top 10 according to the Barna survey. Okay, so the church is not even, talking about culturally developed, the church is not even in the top 10 of the most influential things. If we're going to reach the world, what do we got to do? We got to know where the world is. And according to all the statistics that I read, they're watching, where is the world? At least in America, they're watching 4 to 5 hours of TV a day. And I think the mistake that Christian filmmakers are doing is they're trying to preach in a venue where people go to be entertained. People don't know, they don't go to the movies to be preached to. They get social TV out if they want to be preached to. They go to be entertained. So when they go to a movie, it's the mouse hand, they're like, what am I doing? The church gets excited, but the world doesn't get go. So God I'm not telling you what to do, I'm just telling you what God's told me to do. Is I've got to become as good at telling the truth as the devil is at telling lies using that medium. Amen. So, the average American is glued to their iPhones, iPads, similar devices, listening to music, watching shows, playing games. Americans as a whole spend over $9 billion a year going to the movies. So that's the field that God has called us to. My wife and I, we've been called to create a TV series called Seed, and we just simply ask that you help pray, any way you can, pray for us. Help us any way you can, or pray about what God would have you to do. Okay? Maybe we have 20 years left. That's just a theory. It's not thus say the Lord, it's thus think it loud. How much time we have left? I don't know. But get busy. Start praying. My prayer is, Coach, put me in the game. If we've got one of the 10-yard line, and we got 30 seconds left in the game, put me in the field. Don't be sitting in the bleachers. Do something. And you know, when these things start coming out, remember the faith of people like Caleb and Joshua going up against these guys. Caleb's like, what's the problem? Let's go. David, who is this uncircumcised Philistine? I'm taking 5 rocks because he's got 4 brothers. I'm not missing you. I'm taking you and your brothers out. You know, and look at scriptures like this, where God's talking and facing the giants, you know. Deuteronomy 1-3. Then we turned and went up the way to Bashan, and Og, the king of Bashan, came out against us, and he and all his people to battle at Edrei. Now, this is a pretty close scale representation of Og. Okay, read Doug Hamp's book too, and see how much the dude had to eat just to keep his heart beating. He was a big guy, right? The dude was huge. And the Lord said unto me, fear him not, for I will deliver him and all his people and his land into thy hand. And thou shalt do unto him as thou didst to Sihon, king of the Amorites. Amorites all seed of trees, which dwelt in Heshbon. So the Lord our God delivered into our hands Og, also the king of Bashan, and all his people. And we smote him until none was left to him remaining. If we believe in God, greater is he that he is in us than he that is in the world, and we believe that, amen. If he said we could tell a mountain to move, and it's going to move with a mustard seed. I went to Israel 2005, got mustard seeds from Israel. Mustard seeds are really tiny. Yes. You know, if that tiny little mustard seed can make a mountain move, man, let me get at least a half of the mustard seed going on here. No problem. Right? Fear not. Thank you very much.